Hey guys, it's Kendra.
And this is Jessica, and you're listening to
Lucid Lab.
I just got over a party, and now I'm having to think about another party because it's my daughter's birthday coming up. She's going to be 11.
Almost a teenager.
And it's always so stressful because it's literally right when school starts.
Yeah, that is hard.
Her birthday either is the day before school starts, the day school starts, or the day after school starts. And we always have to have her birthday, the weekend before. It's kind of like the last hoorah.
I can't believe summer's almost over. I really can't.
I know. I'm very sad because I really do not want to wake up when I have to. I have to drive further now. And my daughter's schedule is all kinds of fucked up.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get her to go back to what we
Sleeping
need it to
early.
be. It's not working at all.
Yeah.
So we're going to have literally a very rude awakening.
You should maybe practice with her and make her get up in the mornings like a week before.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
It's still not working. But yeah. So we have our birthday coming up. It's going to be Stranger Things themed.
Ooh. I saw the invitations, but I
Yeah.
haven't seen much else yet.
And she's going to be 11, obviously.
That's really cool.
And she's already into the cosplay stuff, and she does videos and dresses up like 11 and does her hair all slicked back, and she has some really cute videos. But she also is growing up in other ways. We're going to go get her a haircut again, and it's going to be, she calls it a wolf cut. I don't really know. It's cute. It's shaggy.
Really popular right now.
And then she's getting her ears pierced, and she hasn't had that done yet. So
big changes.
I know.
I think my kids got piercings around that time too.
Yeah. I am 50-50 on if she's going to chicken out.
The good thing is if you go to the right place, they do them at the same time.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So they can't
Chicken out for the second one?
Yep. They do them right at the same time. So it's like one pain and you're done.
So two people.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I think she would need that because even though she has bruises all over her body from running into things, she can't handle pain very well, I'm noticing. So she needs that.
You go to the right place and they'll distract them and it'll be fine.
Well,
and if she wants to wear earrings,
I know. Yeah.
I chickened out when I think I was 7 when I wanted to get mine done, and we went. It was a big deal. It was part of a birthday. We got there and they brought it out and I started crying and we had to leave. I remember my mom not being very happy, and then I ended up going back, I don't know, maybe 6 months later and getting it actually done.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been up to much this week. Fortunately, I don't have any parties to plan soon. I've just been focused on trying to do some more stuff around the house. I've got all kinds of do-it-yourself projects going on. And this morning I was home with the cats and I've been working on my stair railing, and I have to keep them out because they'll get in the stain that I'm using.
Oh, yeah.
And my little one, I thought I had locked her up. She was not locked up.
Oh, no.
She got out and I'm just vibing because I have to wear, the thing over my mouth so that I don't breathe it all in. And I can't hear anything because I have my AirPods in. And then all of a sudden I have a cat literally walking through the wet stain.
No.
She was climbing up, and then I was like, oh no. And I freaked out. And then she jumped right into the pan of stain.
Oh my God.
And then she's running everywhere and her paws are covered. And it was just a whole thing.
Oh my God.
I was so stressed out. Then I had to grab her and traumatize her. She's not even a year old. She's a kitten, full on. Had to wash her little paws off. She still has it's an espresso colored stain.
Oh, no.
And she's a light gray with white paws.
Yeah.
So she looks like she got her nails done or something.
It's pretty cute, actually.
It was cute now that I think about it. But at the time, it was not cute.
Chaos.
At all.
Yeah.
I was screaming.
It's like when animals step in concrete.
Yes.
Or something.
I've seen that, walking around neighborhoods, I'll see dog prints in places all the time.
Because I work in the industry, I can't imagine what a headache that must be if that were to happen. Or just even a bird landing.
Or a bunny or just any squirrel.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it happens all the time though.
I'm sure.
Just with my yard and the bunnies, how can you really avoid it? Especially trying to get away. And they're like, hurry, go now.
And then you try to chase them and they just keep running through it back and forth. Yeah.
Fun things.
So that's my exciting life, me and the cats.
We're a couple of real exciting people over here,
But I'm sure you have an exciting case for us today, and I think it's a longer one since we've had a couple of shorter episodes.
Slightly longer, and I think I'm just going to get right into it.
I have no idea what it is.
Well, on November 29th, 1970, a man, a professor from the area, and his two daughters, who were 10 and 12, were hiking in a remote part of Isdalen, or Ice Valley, near Bergen, Norway.
Okay.
It was a cold, bleak Sunday afternoon when they made a gruesome discovery that would ignite one of Norway's most perplexing and enduring mysteries.
Oh.
This desolate area is known locally as Death Valley due to its history of suicides and accidents since the Middle Ages. It's a popular spot for climbing, and sadly, many have lost their lives attempting to scale the ice-carved landforms. And because of its haunting terrain, it's a popular suicide location, which is kind of a horrible way to say it, but it reminds me a lot of the Aokigahara Forest or the Golden Gate Bridge. It's just somewhere where many people have chosen to take their own lives. It is known for being very cold with high winds and only a few hours of sunlight during the wintertime. But on this walk, with the young girls up ahead of the father, in a hollow between jagged black rocks, they came upon the charred remains of a woman's body.
Oh my God.
She was lying on her back with her arms curled up in what is often referred to as a boxer's pose, which is a position that's associated with extreme heat exposure. Her face and front torso were completely burned, her hair mostly singed away with what was left tied back in a ponytail. And the smell of burnt flesh lingered in the air. And I believe it was the smell that actually initially intrigued the girls to investigate and see where it was coming from.
What a horrible thing for these young girls to discover.
I can't imagine. Next to and around the body were several personal items: an umbrella, partially melted plastic bottles, a bottle of liquor, a fur hat which smelled of gasoline, a watch, a bracelet, a few rings, some earrings, partially burnt rubber boots, a sweater, a scarf, a matchbox, and a packed lunch with some bread or crackers also burnt as well. She was dressed before she died, but a good portion of at least the front of her body had burned away. The strange part, if that wasn't shocking enough, and obviously after investigators took the scene in a bit more, all the labels had been removed from her clothing and personal effects.
Whoa. Okay.
Even the bottles had no brand names, and the items seemed deliberately arranged,
Weird.
staged.
Okay.
Police immediately considered it a suicide because that is what the place is known for. But it was clear that that was not the case. Well,
No.
It wasn't a typical suicide anyway.
I guess you could technically set yourself on fire.
You can. Maybe it was an accident. There were
Yeah.
just things strewn around. Maybe something happened. But the remote location, the carefully stripped items, and really the lack of any identifying documents, because she didn't have anything, it all raised red flags.
For sure.
The area was cordoned off and a full-scale investigation began. Like I said, she had no identification on her. Her fingerprints didn't immediately match anyone in the Norwegian system. There was no sign of camping gear. There was no purse, no money, no witnesses. It was as if she simply appeared in this isolated valley. And this is isolated. It's about a 1.5 to 2 hour walk from the center of town.
Oh, wow.
But then she burned herself alive and left no trace of who she was. And the deeper investigators dug, the more bizarre this case became. Within days, it was clear that this woman hadn't just wandered into the valley and died. She had lived a life of deliberate secrecy, and she herself or someone else had gone to great lengths to make sure that no one would ever find out who she was.
This is really bizarre. I've never heard of this.
And the autopsy deepened the mystery even more, which I will come to. Once the initial shock of the discovery wore off, investigators turned their attention to the same pressing question the public would ask for decades. Who was the woman found burned in the Isdalen Valley? She became known as the Isdal Woman.
Okay.
At the time, Norway had no national identity database. Without a passport, wallet, or even clothing labels to go on, there were few immediate leads. A composite sketch was created with the help of a medical examiner and released to the public. She was estimated to be between 25 and 40 years old, around 5'4" tall, with dark hair, brown eyes, and a slim build. Her face was described as attractive and symmetrical, with high cheekbones and delicate features, and she had a small gap between her two front teeth. Forensic dentists noticed that she had extensive and expensive dental work. She had 14 gold and porcelain crowns and fillings, which were done using techniques that weren't common in Norway at the time. The style was more consistent with dental practices in Eastern Europe or parts of Asia. Some experts believed that the quality of the work indicated that she came from some wealth or had access to advanced care abroad.
This is reminding me so much of Lady of the Dunes because they had all these hints, and I remember them talking about her orthodontics or something done, and they eventually did find out who she was. So I don't know if this lady has ever been found, but
I have a while to get there.
okay. I'll hold on.
Yeah, for like 16 pages. Anyway. A few days after her body was discovered, police got a break. 2 suitcases believed to be hers were found at the left luggage office of the Bergen train station. Inside one of them, a fingerprint on a pair of sunglasses matched what little could be recovered from her damaged fingerprints.
Okay.
The contents of the suitcases only deepened the mystery.
Of course. Can't make it easy.
What stood out most was that nothing stood out. Every single item that could have revealed her identity had been removed or altered. Tags were cut out of clothing again, which who does that, really?
Right.
I mean, my daughter does it because she hates tags.
I do it with certain things.
I don't let her do it out of some because I'm like, I could resell that. Don't do that. There were also several wigs, multiple sets of non-prescription eyeglasses, cosmetics, a hairbrush, and a notebook filled with what looked like codes.
Now that's curious.
There were also large amounts of cash in multiple currencies. Norwegian kroner, German marks, Swiss and Belgian francs, and British pounds, as well as train schedules, city maps, and a partially labeled Italian prescription bottle and some forged passports.
She's a spy. It's 007.
That is one theory.
That's where my mind goes right
Immediately,
now.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Every item that could have revealed her identity had been stripped of origin. The items weren't just anonymous, they were sanitized.
Yeah.
Nothing tied her to a specific country, city, or name. And remember the watch she was found with? Well, that was just a prop as well. It was set to 1010, which is the factory setting. If you ever buy a watch,
Crazy.
a mechanical watch, it will always be set to 1010. Well, and then I keep forgetting this. It's important. I didn't write it down, but there were 2 things that did have identifying labels.
Okay.
One, I think, lends some to believe in a certain theory that I'll come to later, but the other actually started off the entire investigation because it gave them their first clue that this wasn't any ordinary woman. It was a bag, like a shopping bag from a store in Stavanger. And I'll come to that in just a second because it would mean that I would kind of have to skip ahead. That's why I'm mentioning this now, because I was like, nothing had a label. Well, there were a couple things.
Okay.
The coded notebook appeared nonsensical at first.
Of course.
Just a series of letters and numbers, but police soon discovered that it was a travel log. Thanks to help from a code specialist, each line represented a date and a location corresponding with hotel records in Norway and other parts of Europe. It was a roadmap of her movements revealing months of carefully tracked travel under different names. There were a few that they weren't able to figure out, so there are still some that no one knows what they mean.
Okay.
Police eventually confirmed at least 9 aliases used between March and November of 1970. These included Genevieve Lancier, Claudia Tilt, Claudia Nielsen, Vera Jarl, Fenella Lork, Alexia Zorna-Merchez, Vera Schlotzkik, and Elizabeth Lienhover, among some others.
Okay.
Each identity came with a different claimed nationality: Belgian, French, Dutch, Italian, sometimes Israeli, and a fake address. The addresses either didn't exist or were connected to random buildings that had no tie to her. Her travel pattern was extensive. She moved between Oslo, Bergen, Stavanger, Trondheim, and at least visited Paris once, possibly Germany, Italy. She rarely stayed in one place for long. One of her earliest known stays was at Hotel Viking in Oslo in March 1970 as Genevieve Lancier. In April, she checked into a hotel in Bergen under Claudia Telt. She returned to Stavanger several times during the spring and summer, using new aliases each time.
I don't know what to make of all of this, but she's kind of living my dream life of
Right.
travel right now. Minus the getting burned at the top of a mountain.
Yeah. In October and November, just weeks before her death, her movements became more concentrated. She arrived in Stavanger again, checked into a hotel under the name Fenella Lork. This is where the shop bag comes into play.
Okay.
The bag was traced back to a family-owned shop that is actually still around today. And at least in 2018, the man who helped her was still there and remembered her very well.
Oh.
Back then, you could tell who an outsider was instantly.
Okay.
Not so much today. It's actually very populated with people from all over Europe.
Mm-hmm.
She was traveling alone, too, which was odd at the time for a woman.
Okay.
She was looking for rain boots. He remembers her because she was attractive. She dressed nicely, but for some reason, she took a really long time deciding on whether or not she was going to buy these boots. He also remembers that even though she looked good, she did not smell good.
Oh,
He described her as garlicky.
that is not how I ever want to be described.
Just a really bad smell that sort of permeated the air.
She's a vampire. Oh, wait. No,
Maybe. Others in other locations would also say that. Or they would say it was just like a strong, spicy perfume smell.
Okay, my new theory is spontaneous human combustion.
Oh, I
Go
wish.
back to that episode.
I wish. Either way, it didn't touch people's noses kindly, at least in the area. It just wasn't the cup of tea for people in Norway, I guess.
Interesting. Okay.
She ended up leaving that day, not buying the boots, but she went back the next day and bought them. So they do remember her.
Mm-hmm.
These are the same boots that would later be found near her burnt body.
Okay, so we got a clue.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really. But they did have a name. She stayed in a hotel as
Yes.
Fenella Lork. After this, she moved on to Bergen. During this time, she stayed at Hotel Neptune in Bergen under the name Elizabeth Lienhover. She was observed several times during this stay, alone, at times with a man, and once appearing visibly agitated in the lobby. During this stay, she was seen dining with a man, but they never spoke. She stayed in multiple hotels in Bergen, and in one was remembered by staff for her unusual behavior. At another Bergen hotel, a housekeeper walked into her room, and in the room, she was sitting there with a man on the bed, but neither said any word to the housekeeper. The housekeeper just like did some stuff around the room and like walked out, and they just like sat there
It's so odd.
silently.
That'd be creepy. I would work really fast to get out of that
Right? They're like-
situation.
I would feel like they're just sitting there contemplating, should we kill her?
Yeah, that's very rude to begin with. You should at least say hi. Come on.
Right? At a shop nearby, another witness saw her arguing with a man in another language while shopping for a wall mirror.
To put where?
Exactly. She was staying in hotels, so why would she need a mirror? She paid exclusively in cash. Her listed occupations ranged from antiquities dealer to a traveling saleswoman, and in at least one hotel, she wrote that she was some kind of decorator, which, okay, wall mirror, maybe, if you're shipping it back to like a client somewhere.
Okay, I'm back to a vampire now for some reason. Mirror, garlic. She's been set on fire. And Van Helsing was the man.
That was
coming
not
for
one
her.
of the theories that I was going to go over later, but you never know.
Like, I don't know why I'm getting a supernatural vibe now. I don't know.
Mm.
The mirror just threw me off. Sorry.
Right, it does.
Ignore me.
I wasn't trying to get supernatural with this, but I can see it. Why not?
Makes-
But wait, doesn't garlic
Oh, wait.
ward
Garlic
off
does. Yeah.
vampires? You almost got me there. Or if that's just a myth, and so she's like, maybe they won't think I'm a vampire if I smell like garlic.
I think I was thinking garlic because it just makes me think of someone really old.
Right.
Like she's been around for centuries and she
Mhm.
smells like the earth because she came from the earth. I don't know.
Yeah, she's like, I don't sweat anymore. It's just dirt.
Like I said, just ignore me
Mud.
over here making shit up.
One of the things that she did often is she would change her rooms more than once, claiming
Because they
some
smelled like
ki-
garlic.
Yeah, she got sick of her own smell. She would claim some kind of dissatisfaction with the first room or would ask to avoid housekeeping altogether. And she had a habit of moving furniture from inside the room to outside the door.
She was trying to hide from someone is what that kind of
Mhm.
makes me think.
She spoke in a low voice to most people, and everyone said that she had a foreign accent. She avoided authorities and human contact as much as possible. One hotel clerk recalled her wearing a purple outfit and again smelling strongly of garlic. That's what I think. It's a really interesting perfume.
It's just like a spicy one from some
and
other part of the
that's
world.
just what their nose is tying it to,
Mhm.
and they're just not used to it.
Or she's running from a vampire and she's wearing garlic to keep
Oh,
him
maybe.
away. That's my other theory now.
Maybe.
I'm just coming up with all
He's
of
like,
them.
you're mine.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I have to jump from place to place to place or he's going to find me.
Yeah, I think I saw this movie. I don't know.
Others mentioned that she would return to the hotel several times throughout the day, each time leaving in a completely different outfit and appearance, like entirely.
This is like so bizarre.
On November 23rd, she checked out of Hotel Hornheimen in Bergen. From there, she traveled to Voss via the train and stayed there for one night before turning back toward Bergen. And what I realized is that Bergen seems to be like the hot spot for whatever she was doing. She was constantly going back and forth from there.
Okay.
There is a lot of talk about Rome, Italy, and some other things that I found. So they kind of think maybe that could be like her original home or where she was anyway at this time in her life, or like her headquarters or something. But as far as in Norway, Bergen was her main place. But that same day, a woman matching her description was spotted hiking near Isdalen Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the last time that she was seen alive.
And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, like the way she was dressed and all of that, she was probably hiking up there in clothes that wouldn't be hiking gear.
We're going to come to that.
Okay.
So witness reports of her, just in general, they varied. Some described her as quiet, elegant, private. Others said that she seemed paranoid or evasive. She seemed very sophisticated. She dressed in expensive clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Other witnesses in Bergen reported strange behavior from a woman matching her description, because people are just guessing at this point. But
Yeah.
I mean, a woman like her sticks out.
Yes.
And most of this behavior suggested that maybe she was being followed. One man who sat next to her in a hotel restaurant said that she was just super paranoid, and she abruptly left when two men in suits came into the restaurant, and she only returned when they had left. She was often seen wearing wigs,
Yeah.
alternating between brunette and blonde, short, longer. But most of all, she appeared to just be constantly watching her surroundings. One witness remembered her dining with a man in Bergen where she seemed to be just super agitated and tense. So she's either like really pissed off at them or she doesn't talk to them at all.
Okay.
Another said that she left a suitcase at a hotel that was supposed to be picked up by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
One even said that they overheard her speaking to a man in what seemed like a Slavic language. So she's very worldly.
All over. She knows multiple languages. It just goes back to spy.
Yeah,
A spy vampire.
I like that one. The suitcase contents combined with her hotel aliases, erratic movements, it gives the strong impression that her travel was part of a greater purpose, one that required secrecy, mobility, and plausible deniability. Some investigators do believe that she was working, but for who and why?
Yeah.
And why would someone go to such great lengths to erase their own identity? The pattern wasn't just suspicious, it was strategic. Each alias was used in only one location. Each trip was tightly timed. If her movements were the result of a job, whether espionage or smuggling or something more covert, she was either incredibly cautious or more likely considered disposable and couldn't settle in one place for too long.
Yeah.
So let's talk theories.
Yes.
The official ruling by Norwegian authorities in 1970 was that the Isdal woman died by suicide.
Yeah, we know that's not it.
Their reasoning was based on the autopsy because she had ingested a massive amount of sleeping pills, 50 to 80 pills.
But somebody can force you to take that.
Yeah. Something called phenomal, a form of phenobarbital, which was a barbiturate common in Europe at the time. And while her body was badly burned, the internal examination revealed that she had soot in her lungs, which meant that she was still breathing when the fire began. She had inhaled smoke while alive.
That's horrible.
Which is frightening. The combination of pills and carbon monoxide poisoning from the fire was listed as the cause of death. Again, why would they think that someone would do this to themselves? I'm not sure, but I really think it's because of the pills, obviously.
It seems like a very elaborate way to commit suicide.
Oh, yes.
Like, why would you do that? You would just take sleeping pills in one of your mini hotels.
Exactly.
And slip off into eternal sleep.
Right. She also had a large bruise on the right side of her neck, possibly caused by a blow or a fall. Though authorities never determined a definitive source, it did not contribute to her death, but something to mention. Police suggested that she may have gone into the remote valley to die alone deliberately, removed all identifying labels and set herself on fire, which we don't know because she also had these suitcases that had all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, there are several problems with this theory. First, even though she had the 50 to 80 sleeping pills in her stomach, the autopsy shows that not all had been absorbed, meaning she took them shortly before dying.
Okay.
But they believe she had not lost consciousness at the time the fire started. There were also some of those pills near the body. If her goal was to die by overdose, why set herself on fire before the pills took effect? Also, suicide by self-immolation is rare, especially among women, and almost unheard of in a remote location.
Yes.
It's painful. It's uncertain. You might not die.
Yeah.
You could burn your entire body and not die. And it's symbolic in nature usually. Typically, it's a method associated with political protest, and there's no evidence that she was making any kind of statement. If anything, it's erase me from this world completely. You don't get to know who I am.
Right. Nobody knows who this is. How are you making a statement?
And just the organized, intentional removal of all the labels from her belongings doesn't fit with anyone that's going to do something spontaneous or emotionally driven. Instead, this is planned or an effort to frustrate identification, possibly by someone else.
Yes.
While suicide remains the official explanation, even members of the original investigative team later expressed doubt, including lead investigators who said in interviews decades later that the circumstances obviously don't line up.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what accelerant was used to set her on fire? So we have that bottle of alcohol, and I'm going to say, forget about that. We went over that in the Ice Lady.
Yeah, how
it's
can't
not enough.
stay.
But the alcohol that she had with her, she did have a bottle of liquor with her, but it's not enough. After World War II in Norway, they saw this spike in alcohol consumption and started putting a stop to it. There was a complete ban on alcohol advertising in 1975. And I know this was before, but you can't really get good alcohol there. Like even today, you can only buy alcohol above 4.7% at either a bar or like a state-run liquor store.
Wow.
And the higher the alcohol content, the higher the tax. So it costs a lot more. And the alcohol that she had, it was like 4.3. It was something very low. Anyway, the point is she can't set herself on fire. I mean, she could burn herself,
but not
in the way that she was lit up.
Because even like Everclear, which is what, like 100% probably won't work as a fire starter.
I mean, it could start a fire.
But to burn human body.
Oh, yeah, not like that.
And we talked about like spontaneous human combustion episode 2. We talk about how hot a body has to get.
Oh, yeah. Now, she did have the gasoline on the fur hat.
Right.
But there was no other bottle of any type of accelerant found on scene. I think it's safe to say that she didn't do this to herself. I don't know why we still even talk about it, honestly. Some people bring up, well, it could have been kicked down the mountain. Where she was found wasn't like on the side of a cliff, actually. So it wasn't there.
It's not suicide.
Right. Now, I do have to mention this because it is out there. There is this one man who was brought on to the case at one point. I honestly kind of skipped past it. I didn't mean to, but I didn't hear what his profession was. But he was adamant that the cause of this was from hairspray. Because hairspray is very flammable. He thinks that there was an accident. But the way she was burned, it would almost have to happen from maybe a hairspray bottle exploding or something like that. I don't follow this at all. It's just this old man, and he's like very adamant that there's something about a hairspray bottle, but there was no hairspray bottle found on the scene.
And she still has all the sleeping pills in her system, which is odd.
Yeah. So if the Isdal woman didn't kill herself, then someone else did and maybe attempted to make it look like suicide with the pills.
Right.
First, we have the large bruise on the right side of her neck, although it wasn't conclusively explained. It could have been from a fall, but it was also consistent with being struck by something. Maybe whoever did this, when they first got their hands on her, that's how they subdued her or whatever. The timing of the sleeping pills, some experts believe that she was drugged in that way to make her easier to handle.
Possibly.
And then made to take more somehow after that. Those earlier doses were to just make her drowsy and compliant, so she couldn't fight back.
Of course.
And by the time she was set on fire, she was still alive, but like incapacitated, very out of it. The positioning of her body and personal items did seem deliberate. No one goes up to Edward Cullen Land and on top of the mountain just spreads everything out for a picnic in the middle of winter.
Fuck no. And then takes sleeping pills and gets their bottle of hairspray out and goes, oops.
Yeah. And obviously someone tried to delay this discovery. I mean, the location alone, it was difficult to access. It was just by random chance that someone came upon her and her body was partially hidden. So that leaves the question, why?
Yeah.
Why would someone kill her? Of all the theories, the ideal is that she was a spy. That's the most enduring and arguably the most compelling.
Of course.
People point to the Cold War. Norway, though neutral, was strategically important to NATO.
Oh.
In the 1960s and 70s, the region around Bergen hosted missile testing, including the Penguin missile, which was a NATO air-to-sea missile tested during the exact time frame that she was traveling in the area.
Okay.
And this area housed critical NATO installations monitoring Soviet submarine and naval activities in the North Sea. It was home to naval bases and research facilities that focused on underwater detection systems. Her movements coincided with increase in Soviet intelligence activity in Northern Europe.
So she's KGB.
No, she's not.
Okay.
I'll come to that later. During this time, it was found that she had visited Stavanger headquarters, which is now the oil capital of Norway. And one shopkeeper said that she stopped in to ask for directions to areas where underwater detection testing was being done.
Okay, that's suspicious.
At least one witness claimed to have seen her speaking with someone associated with the military. Another remembered her being interested in the layouts of the fjords near a naval base. Some investigators have speculated about connections to Middle Eastern intelligence services or possibly that she was a double agent. Although there is no direct evidence linking her to any known intelligence agency, her methods strongly resemble low-level espionage tradecraft. She may have been an asset, courier, or informant, possibly expendable. It took me some time going through how to present this episode because they're like, she's a spy. No, she's a courier. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're working for something that to everyday people would be wild. That's still a spy to me.
Right.
Skeptics, however, will argue that she was too conspicuous. One Reddit thread, someone said, professional spies don't wear wigs or sunglasses and constantly switch names.
Okay.
That's a good way to attract attention.
Truth, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a professional spy.
Yeah. While I understand that, and I'm not sure how good wigs were back then, I did find something that says removing tags from clothing is textbook counterintelligence behavior. Not a spy for the Soviet Union, though. I heard an interview with someone who was questioned about this. Could she have worked for the KGB?
Right.
And he said no, that nothing she did matched what a spy would have done. He was trained as a spy.
Oh, so
he knows. For one, she wouldn't cut tags off the clothing. She would be sure to wear clothing with tags that tied back to whatever nationality she was claiming.
That's smarter for sure.
She would have had 1 or 2 other aliases, definitely not 8 or 9. And she would be wearing Chanel number 5, not whatever this weird spicy scent was that people were smelling.
So she was just a wannabe spy.
No, he said that he did believe she was a spy.
Okay.
But for who, he couldn't say.
Someone who does not have the good training.
His point was just that's how they were trained. So that was their specific MO as a spy, I guess. Others believe she may have been an amateur, like you said, or a freelance agent working for money or ideology without formal training. Yeah. Maybe she had a vendetta and was trying to get to someone, like high up specifically, that was hard to find. And we've seen a lot of shows about that.
I know. That's why I'm like, this sounds like a movie.
But the espionage theory suggests that she was either betrayed or compromised and left exposed. If she knew too much or failed a mission, killing her and disguising it as a suicide would have been a clean way to remove her. No intelligence agency has ever claimed her.
Of course, they never do.
But touching back to the option of suicide, going back to the same KGB guy, there is a possibility that she was both a spy or agent of some kind, and that sometimes that's how many of these type of people choose to stop their work is
because
suicide.
You can't get out. Yeah.
It's a lonely life. And maybe she started to question everything she had done and wanted to end it all. I still don't think that the evidence suggests that it was suicide. I think it's murder. But sleeping pills was a common way for women to commit suicide back then, even today. Mm-hmm. Setting yourself on fire, though?
That's not.
No. In 2023, a Swiss newspaper, I'm not even going to attempt to say this name, published a theory tying the Isdal Woman to financier Francois Genoux. Genoux was a Swiss banker with deep ties to both post-Nazi networks and pro-Palestinian organizations. He was known to fund controversial causes and support individuals operating in legal gray zones. The theory suggests that the woman may have been working as a courier or an operative tied to Genoux's network. She may have carried documents, money, or information between the different groups in Europe and the Middle East. Overlapping travel routes, aliases, and pattern of secrecy actually align with known operations of Janot supported in the 1960s.
Interesting.
So she ended up back in Paris a couple different times when we do know that he also went to Paris for something.
Okay.
So
this
there's that.
Seems pretty, yeah. And it could be why her perfume was not like recognized in that region if it came from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Where they like spicier
food
and smells.
While this theory is speculative and unconfirmed, it was serious enough for the Norwegian investigators to re-examine her life in 2023. The possibility that she was tied to political activity or leftist underground movements rather than traditional Cold War espionage has gained a lot more traction recently. And since, there has actually been one woman who has come forward saying that her grandfather actually worked the case in Bergen when this happened and just lived life very frustrated afterwards. It was something that haunted him forever because he knew that something secretive and serious was tied to her death. He was faced with a lot of red tape in trying to investigate her death, and his ultimate understanding for the lack of necessary response in the matter, which I'm going to touch on more in just a minute, was due to some involvement with Israel. And because of that, normal policemen were told to let it go, focus on something else, and not investigate her death further. Their work was essentially shut down. Again, I'm going to come back to this, but why was I not surprised to hear Israel having some kind of involvement?
I know, I'm just sitting here and she was pro-Palestinian potentially, and I'm just like, why does it all go back to this country that just feels like...
Or she worked for Israel. It's one of the two. It's not clear, but there seems to be some connection. People come back to Israel a lot. And this was information that came out in 2019. So this actually isn't new. And knowing all that has come to light since... Honestly, it's more believable than I would have believed a decade ago.
Of course. A decade ago, we would have never thought.
No, at least here in America. We didn't know any of this. The suppression of information regarding anything Israel related was Israel is great. Nobody knew. There is also a theory, though, that she was a war criminal hunter, that she was in Norway offing Nazi men.
Oh, I like that.
I know. I do want to think of her like this, actually.
Now she's my hero.
But not all theories out there involve international intrigue. Some suggest a more grounded explanation.
What could that be?
Reddit threads and independent researchers have argued that she may have been suffering from some undiagnosed mental illness, possibly schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, with her obsessive secrecy, paranoia, and avoidance of contact all could reflect some kind of delusional state where she felt like she was like super important and like had to get away from somebody.
Also, that means that she had to have had a lot of money if she wasn't being funded by a government organization.
Maybe she had a rich daddy.
Yeah, and he fucked her up in the head. I don't know. Possible, I guess.
Her aliases and coded notes could have been her own coping mechanisms, not spycraft. And, you know, they can get this elaborate.
Yes, I've heard of it happening.
But I don't know if it would be this timed. She was very specific to timing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be that OCD because you are delusional. So you're kind of losing any sense of reality at some point.
Unless she was just like so sold in her head on this idea that she was a spy.
Maybe. Some believe she also could have been a sex worker, possibly operating independently across Europe. Her frequent travel, her fake identities, and reluctance to leave evidence behind would align with this as well.
And also all the men that she didn't really talk to kind of could fit in with that.
It also feels just like a lot of work to hide the fact that you get paid to sleep with people.
Like it wasn't that big of a stigma, especially not in Europe, I would think.
No,
they're
actually,
a little more open.
No, not at that time, actually, and in this area. But I'm thinking like an American right now. Like, I don't think of sex work as something to like
go to that
extreme
to go to those
for.
Lengths.
Right.
Yeah.
But a Reddit user did say, if you're doing sex work in a conservative country and don't want to be arrested or killed, you do erase your tracks. So maybe that is a possibility. I still don't see it being the case unless she was paid extremely well, top-notch sex worker.
High dollar escort service or something.
Because she would have had to have been. She traveled so much and she only stayed in hotels.
Yeah.
She was seen with all those different men in the different hotels. So it's possible. Again, it just seems like a lot. I understand being secretive and maybe the disguises, but the coded notebooks, the removal of every tag.
Yeah, that's not needed for sex work, I wouldn't think.
No. Another reason some people think this could be the case is because of the only other item found with her that still had its branding. I mentioned that I had it before, but I didn't tell you what it was, and that was the matchbox that was found on the scene. It was from a sex shop in Germany.
Okay.
It's a very odd thing to be among the things found on the scene. I'm just personally more inclined to think that either that was an accident of the murderer, leaving that behind,
belonged to the man.
But some witnesses from hotels said that she smoked long cigars. So she could have just grabbed that off of like a counter at a bar or something, because Germans were known to be in the area. Like German soldiers were in the area at the time. So
yeah, she could have just asked someone for a light and they gave her the matchbox.
Exactly. I don't think it's a big clue in any way or anything that's going to lead us back to any specific person.
No.
It's just matches. Now, if it was a specific bar that someone frequented or something, but yeah,
no,
it's not really a part of the story, I think. Also, everywhere she stayed were considered Christian hotels where prostitution and alcohol were prohibited.
Okay.
She would have gotten into
Major
a lot
trouble.
of trouble.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense that she would take the risk in the area specifically. And she was already suspicious enough with all the shit she was doing.
Changing your hair every day.
Yeah. But regardless, in this version, her death still would have been a murder, possibly by a client, a trafficker, or, I mean, she could have taken her own life in a mental health crisis. I have to mention everything.
Yeah.
One lesser discussed theory is that she was involved in smuggling or organized crime. Again, the multiple currencies, disguises, and travel routes can support this as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps she moved goods or information for a criminal network, not necessarily political. The fact that her identity has been a mystery for more than 50 years could indicate that she was part of an underground world that doesn't report people missing.
That's possible. And the way that she died with the being set on fire and everything, I could see that going with organized crime.
Yeah, maybe she tried to leave.
Yeah.
Maybe she failed one of her things that she was supposed to do and she had to be eliminated.
Or she double-crossed somebody.
Right. This theory is difficult to prove, obviously, because we can't prove crap.
And we don't know how many underground organizations might be out there that are not well known.
There's so many unsolved deaths out there that are tied to trafficking and black market activity that we'll never know the absolute truth to. And we're dealing with that right now in our own country.
Yes.
Plenty of people are disappearing every day now, and we don't know where they end up.
Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah. All of these theories continue to gain traction. They have over decades because no one has reported her missing. And it's just one of those things that just keeps going.
That we know of.
Right.
She could be,
that we know
like
of.
it could be someone who went missing in like her 20s.
Exactly.
And we never knew. I don't know how old. They said between 25 and 40. We don't know. She could have gone missing as a teenager because she was trafficked into an organization. There's just so many things.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind is that during this time, a lot of people in Europe in general were kind of closed off from one another. It was the Cold War. It was one of those times in history where they're like, who can we trust?
Yeah.
What can we do? It's kind of like trying to talk to different specialists in the healthcare system. They don't talk to each other, right? So we really don't know unless there was good records kept. And this, not finding out who she was, had a lot to do with, obviously, the authorities at the time. Despite police interviews with over 100 people, international fingerprint comparisons, and extensive media coverage, her identity and the circumstances of her death remain unknown. But this wasn't just because they had nothing to go on. There was actually a lot to investigate, but unfortunately, if investigations went too far, they were shut down.
That's suspicious too.
There seemed to be some type of red tape anytime anyone not crooked tried to dig further. Norwegian police from the initial investigation have come out saying that there was a lot of interference from higher ups. Even some of the witnesses interviewed were told to forget her and not to talk about it anymore. They were quick to call it suicide, even though it was apparent that it was much more than that. One junior detective from the time said, quote, "We were explicitly told to pursue it as a suicide," and that anytime anyone brought up evidence to the contrary, they were dismissed by their superiors.
Wow.
And when something is ruled a suicide, resources for that investigation are greatly diminished.
Yeah.
which was intentional. And there were many witness statements that were intentionally never followed up on or included in reports until this case was reopened decades later.
Okay.
Several of which would have been key in any other investigation.
So now we're going to get into the conspiracy theory.
Now I'm just going to give you more details.
Okay.
One farmer near the valley reported seeing a woman matching her description, accompanied by two men in dark coats walking towards the Isdal Valley. He remembers them distinctly for several reasons. First, they were not dressed as if they were going on a hike.
Mm-hmm.
They were all dressed as if they were going to town. He specifically remembers her and making a mental note that she was not wearing enough clothes.
Okay.
And this was the beginning of winter.
Mm-hmm.
The high temperature would have been somewhere around 40, and that's Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And it was either snowy or raining. There was only like 1 hour of direct sunlight each day. The two men had dark hair, slightly darker complexion, and were following behind her about 65 feet to 20 meters back. When he crossed paths with her, she looked into his eyes. She seemed like she was about to say something but didn't, and just looked behind her at the men.
Oh.
He said she seemed like she was scared,
Yeah.
but also defeated.
Mm.
The men didn't say anything to him or each other and were just very serious with just determined stares ahead. So that's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Another man, a fisherman, saw her on more than one occasion near the docks in town. She seemed to be scoping things out. And this was in a completely different town, by the way.
Okay.
I don't have the name. I tried several times to like listen to it. And then every time I tried to type it into Google, because this was off of something, I didn't come up with anything that resembled any town in Norway, but I know it exists.
Right. In
Anyway.
Norwegian.
Yeah.
That we can't pronounce.
She seemed to be scoping things out, at one time stopping to talk to what seemed like a naval officer for quite a long while. And this was suspicious enough to remember because this was a very small fishing village. And in the distance of this fishing village, they were doing the penguin missile testing.
Oh.
Like you could see it. From that area, it was a great vantage point. She just really stuck out with how she dressed. She had dark hair. People remembered her.
Yeah.
They didn't see outsiders ever, really.
Mm-hmm.
This was a few weeks before she died. After this, that man reached out to the police once, it came out of her death and they had that sketch. Yeah. And a few days later, while waiting at a train station with his family to go on holiday, he was approached by two police officers. He was taken away for about 20 minutes. When he came back, he didn't say anything to his family, but, they coaxed it out of him over the trip. And he told them that the police gave him a warning.
Why?
And oddly, some weapons.
What?
They were concerned for his safety and actually gave him a knife and a handgun in the instance that he would need to defend himself.
Okay, that's weird. So the police knew something was up.
Something was up, and they cared enough about this old man who reached out. He was told to keep his mouth shut and his eyes open.
Whoa.
His family said he was on edge for the rest of his life until his death.
This makes me think organized crime.
Yeah. But I mean, organized crime is the fucking government. So yeah.
They're all one and the same.
Yes, they are.
Just who's hiring who.
The overall feeling, though, is obviously something's getting covered up with this case. Other witness statements never followed up on included, for instance, all of the witness statements from hotel staff for the most part for the different men that she was seen with.
Okay.
No effort was ever made to find out who these men were.
Yeah, that's odd.
All of these statements were left out of police files. They were only discovered during the investigative journalism done by the hosts of a podcast as they spent time going back to each hotel that she was known to stay at and talking with staff.
Wow.
Some that were from that time, some not, but they knew the story because these are small areas and people talk. Most of these hotels, which I found very interesting because they would say this, is that they haven't changed since then. Like even the decor. So it made me want to go visit.
Norway is on my list.
There were also reports of political interference. Several investigators would later claim that when certain leads pointed toward intelligence connections, they were either abruptly reassigned or told to drop it and focus on something else. And just before Christmas in December of 1970, which is a few weeks later, that's when police announced officially that it was a suicide and that they would not be investigating it further.
Wow.
And this was the most amazing thing that honestly had happened in this area. And they're just like, suicide.
We don't want to know. Yeah, that's
it was
so
shut down.
fishy.
They gave it less than a month. So they held this like press conference and they were asked about the spy option.
Yeah.
And they denied all spy theories.
Okay.
But now we do know that the secret police were working on it. So the secret police in Norway, it's just called secret. It's kind of like the
FBI,
like the CIA,
Yeah.
the Secret Service.
Okay.
Secret police just doesn't sound as fancy.
It sounds like a made up agency.
Sounds like Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
But that coded notebook, it mysteriously disappeared from storage in 1976. And for a long time, Norwegian security services classified portions of the investigation, making them inaccessible to new detectives.
Real convenient that code book disappeared.
Yeah. It was done so in a way that no single investigator had a complete picture of the case.
Wow.
And actually, other than her body, most, if not everything, ended up disappearing from evidence over time, with only copies or photos of the items remaining.
Wow.
And not just evidence from her, but interviews, recordings, reports, just a lot has disappeared intentionally.
Of course. Disappeared in quotations.
Right.
Destroyed is more the word.
Or in someone's basement.
Yeah.
And especially in like these smaller areas. If it was like someone's life's work, they might have a box at their house because they work from their house. So who knows where all the shit is, right?
Right.
Could just be separated all over the place.
Never to be found, or it'll show up at a garage sale one day.
Right. Ooh, this is interesting.
It's only the 1970s when this happened. It's
Right?
still not
True.
that old.
I mentioned some movement with the case in 2023, but renewed interest in the case actually started in 2016, 46 years after her death. There was a joint investigative project by NRK, Norway's public broadcaster, and the BBC.
Okay.
I kind of already mentioned this, but didn't give you the name. This resulted in the podcast Death in the Isdal Valley,
Oh, okay.
which released in 2018. It brought international attention back to this mystery. It's a really good podcast if you want to listen to it. It didn't just revisit old evidence. It helped catalyze new forensic analysis using modern technology. The podcast made a concerted effort to treat the case with sensitivity, emphasizing that this wasn't just a spy story or a mystery. It was a life.
Yeah.
A woman who existed, who lived on purpose, with purpose, and who died alone in a cold Norwegian valley with no name and no one to claim her. That's not
sad.
fair.
Yeah.
Norwegian police officially reopened the case in response to the podcast's popularity
Oh.
and its uncovering of new leads. Mitochondrial DNA was extracted from samples preserved in police evidence, passed from mother to child, allowed scientists to assign her to haplogroup H24, a lineage commonly found in southeastern Europe and southwest Asia. While not definitive, this pointed to possible maternal ancestry in countries like the Balkans, Greece, Turkey, or the Caucasus region. Which, if you were like me, I didn't know where that was. It's between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea and consists of like southern Russia, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan.
Yeah, I've never heard of that region either.
Another group, which actually came in after the next thing I'm going to tell you, but I go into like this whole explanation. So I'm mentioning it before, but they got involved after a different analysis had been done. And this is the DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit group that uses genetic genealogy to identify unknown deceased persons. They joined in 2019 in this effort, and they hope to trace her lineage by comparing her DNA with genealogical databases. However, there were no matches found. It did narrow her to likely identify with several family groups like in Central Europe, but nothing could be confirmed. But that's also because they didn't want her to be included in like commercial, like super public databases.
Okay.
And neither would probably anybody who's just normal. Like if you signed up for, I don't know,
the genealogy ancestry.com.
and then all of a sudden you're tied to this mysterious woman that has been called a spy for 55 years, like your life is going to be turned upside down.
True.
So they haven't done that yet.
Okay.
I mean, I don't understand why there wouldn't be some way to do it secretively.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been completely explored.
Okay.
I think eventually that's maybe where we're going to find her.
Yeah.
But you never know.
In a few more years.
In addition to mitochondria DNA, one of the most important developments was the decision to perform isotope analysis on her teeth. Isotopes are chemical markers in tooth enamel that can help determine where a person grew up based on water, soil, and the food that they were exposed to during childhood. They specifically looked at carbon-14. This method determined that she was 45 years old when she died.
Oh, wow.
Which was a lot older than they thought she was. They really did think that she was in her 20s. On her hotel card, she had to list her birthday. And she kind of put herself in that 25-year-old range, 25 to 30-year-old range. So either she just looked really young.
Yeah, she looked good for her age.
Because it's hard to lie about your age. Maybe she was always told that you look young for your age, and so she just kind of went with it.
Or people just thought she looked really haggard for her 20s.
Another reason is they thought if she was too old is that they might question why she was traveling alone versus a younger girl who hasn't been married yet or something like that, which that makes sense as well. The isotope results revealed that she likely spent her early childhood in or near Nuremberg, Germany.
Oh.
Close to the French border, which is interesting because that means that she was born during Hitler's rise to power.
Oh.
Directly in the center of it.
Damn.
It was the most important city for the Nazi movement.
Yes.
There were also signs that she may have lived in France for a period during her adolescence, specifically because of her writing. There are characteristics from all countries that can kind of tell us where children learned how to write or where their writing was mostly influenced. And collectively, experts have decided that she learned how to write, or her writing developed the most in or near France or in a French-speaking country.
Okay.
So, is it possible that her family was Jewish and they fled the area in her youth? Maybe. But there were other reasons that non-Jewish children were sent away during this time as well for their safety. But usually that wasn't to the west, so it wasn't to France. They were usually sent to places like Bavaria, Austria, or Moravia. France was not a common choice and is southwest of Germany. But a lot of Jewish people went to this area thinking that if stuff ended, they could kind of easily get home at some point.
Right.
So it could have been either way, honestly. We don't know if she was Jewish or on the Nazi side. I don't know.
Yeah.
She also could have ended up in some kind of foster care during this time, as a lot of children did.
Something could have happened to her parents, and that's why no one ever came forward looking for her missing.
Maybe the instability she experienced growing up led her to being prime for recruiting. Or she specifically sought something out out of revenge or something like that.
Who knows? Maybe her parents were Nazis and she didn't agree and wanted out.
Maybe. But if she was Jewish, like you said, it's possible she had no family left.
Possible,
and why no one ever came forward for her, which again would have made her perfect for this spy work. Nothing kept her tied to anywhere specific or to any particular identity.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this confirmed what investigators long suspected, though. She was definitely not Norwegian.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, in the course of the renewed investigation, the Norwegian National Criminal Investigation Service also reviewed files from international police agencies. Still, no matches were found to any missing person reports, criminal records, or intelligence files. Trace evidence analysis of her preserved clothing using spectroscopic techniques came up with microscopic particles embedded in her clothing fibers that pointed to specific industrial environments that she had visited, which included rare chemical compounds used in specialized research facilities of the area.
Interesting.
Again, kind of pointing back to the fact that she had visited places that normal people don't go.
Yep.
Forensic artists used computer modeling to reconstruct her facial features based on her preserved skull, which was far more accurate than the sketches that were done in 1970.
I'm sure.
And this allowed for better comparison with missing persons records across Europe. This digital reconstruction was publicly released in 2019. This and the renewed media attention did result in dozens of new leads. One man came forward claiming to have seen the woman with military personnel again. Okay. So that's like the third one.
Yeah.
Another claimed she had expressed concerns about being followed. While unverified, these accounts aligned with earlier witness statements from hotel staff and Bergen locals. Other people who recognized her came forward, but all reported knowing her under different names.
Of course.
None of which could be verified. They were either the same or other aliases that were not previously known.
Mm-hmm.
At present, her remains are preserved in a zinc coffin. she has an unmarked grave so that no one can attempt any funny business.
Good.
And this is so that Norwegian authorities can either exhume her for further testing and or if her family is ever found, she can finally go home.
Moved. Yeah.
More than 50 years after her death, the Isdal Woman remains one of the most haunting unsolved cases in Europe. Is it now solved? Question mark?
What do you mean? Is it solved? Obviously not.
Well, okay. So halfway through my research, I came upon several sources that claimed that the case was finally solved
Okay.
this year. And I was like, what? I can't rewrite this episode. Like I've already gone down a rabbit hole. So I decided to leave it as is and continue on. But quickly I realized that none of what I'm about to tell you can be substantiated at all.
Okay.
It appears to be a bad rumor started by someone for whatever reason. I don't know, just to stir up drama.
To get TikTok views.
But I found one kind of documentary that for the most part was impressive enough. It had all of the correct information leading up to one point in which they claim that the case has been solved. And there is now a name for the woman who died horribly decades ago. But again, it's not confirmed by any main source, not by BBC, not NRK, the local, or NZZ. And you would think after all this time, if anything were to happen in this case, they would take it. They need the views. They need the listens.
They'd be all over it.
So I'm going to tell you the story. It's not true at all. I know it's rubbish because I went further and I cross-checked all the names mentioned, the institutions, the testing methods. Almost everything in here I could not find to be real.
So, okay.
But I'm mentioning this because it's entertaining. Okay. And they did a good job of coming up with a final chapter to the story.
So it's like a Blair Witch Project.
Well, it reminds me more than anything of a creepypasta, how detailed those are. And so I'm just going to pay it a little bit of attention because it caught my eye. Not true. But anyway. So I'm going to tell you it as it was presented for some added dramatic effect, because why not add some fun to this?
Of course. We love drama.
So according to this, they took another look at her teeth. The breakthrough came with the digitization of dental records from former Eastern Bloc countries. There was a massive archival project undertaken as part of broader historical preservation efforts following German reunification in 2023, and these records became searchable through a centralized European forensic database. She had distinctive dental work that ontologists recognized as unusual. She had extensive gold crowns and specialized bridge work that followed techniques that were primarily taught in Central European dental schools and only during a specific time period.
Mm-hmm.
The unique material and techniques were used only at a few institutions during the 1950s and 1960s. So that's not to say that part's not true.
Yeah, that part could be totally true.
Investigators were able to cross-reference her distinctive dental patterns and came up with 7 potential matches. Then they narrowed it down with other information, her estimated age and other physical characteristics, until they had 3 potential candidates, all of which had disappeared or lost contact with family during the turbulent Cold War period. Microscopic examination of her fillings revealed trace elements specific to materials used in a particular region in East Germany. So we're in Germany.
Yep.
There were minute signatures of local metal processing facilities that had operated near Dresden, further narrowing the geographical area, before they were able to tie the dental work back to one specific dental clinic in Dresden, Germany.
Oh.
The dental work she received was only performed between 1958 and 1962, and all of that information had been archived. They went through patient files with radiographs comparing everything until they landed on a near perfect match.
Mm-hmm.
The work was done in 1960, and after 55 years, they had a name, a woman whose official records indicated that she had later defected to the West, though family members never heard from her again. But they still needed to confirm everything else they had. A new approach to genetic genealogy was the last piece of the puzzle. Apparently, this revolutionary approach has changed how historical identifications are made and marks a paradigm shift in forensic science. The technique is known as converging ancestry network analysis. While previous approaches relied primarily on autosomal DNA or mitochondrial DNA in isolation, this new approach analyzes sequences from both and has the ability to process fragmentary DNA from decade-old samples and still produce definitive identifications. So sounds really convincing
very scientific.
so far.
Yep.
The rest I'm going to repeat word for word so you can see why whoever wrote this put in some effort to make it seem legit.
Yeah.
All right, starting off, quote, Dr. Helena Yervinen, not a real person, lead geneticist at the European Forensics Genetics Institute, not a real place, explained that by simultaneously running hundreds of partial matches through a probability engine, we can now identify relatives up to 6 degrees of separation, even when working with degraded genetic material. The international dimension proved equally crucial. The investigation benefited from the 2024 cross-border genetic privacy record, again, not a real thing, which established protocols allowing forensic agencies to query anonymized genetic markers across previously siloed national databases. This agreement navigated the complex privacy concerns that had previously limited such searches, creating a framework that protected individual genetic privacy while enabling humanitarian identifications. When applied to the Isdal Woman's case, they identified 32 living individuals across Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic who shared significant genetic markers with her. These weren't close relatives, but distant cousins, people who otherwise would have never been connected to the case through traditional means. Researchers constructed an extensive family tree spanning back to the 1850s, gradually narrowing branches until they identified a family line with a missing female member whose age, disappearance, timeline, and background aligned with what was known about the Isdal woman.
Mm-hmm.
The family had lost contact with the daughter in the early 1960s under circumstances suggesting that she had been recruited by state security services. The final confirmation came through a direct comparison with preserved genetic material from the woman's parents stored in a biobank maintained as part of the medical studies conducted in the former East Germany, which, to interject, isn't unheard of.
Yeah.
This comparison yielded a parent-child match probability exceeding 99.9998%, definitely confirming her identity. What's remarkable about this identification is that it required technologies from multiple disciplines that didn't exist 5 years ago, noted Sven Bergman, director of the International Cold Case Initiative. Again, not a real person or a real initiative, although I did find a Swedish investigative journalist by that name. And there is the ICCAP, which is the International Cold Case Analysis Project. That is a global initiative tackling cold cases.
Okay.
No such guy working there, but maybe this Swedish investigative journalist wrote this and just thought it would be funny because it seems to kind of tie together.
Okay.
Anyway, continuing on, the convergence of advances in genetic sequencing database integration and computational analysis finally made it possible to solve a case that had resisted all previous attempts at resolution. Her identity was revealed after 55 years. Previously merely the Isdal woman, she finally reclaimed her true identity, Margot Elise Hoffman, born June 12, 1934 in Dresden, Germany. She would have been 36 at the time of her death.
They're wrong.
But do you see what I'm saying? It sounds legit. It's so like...
That's the danger of the internet nowadays. So much.
Unfortunately, it's not. That lady does not exist, even though Find a Grave changed their information to match this.
Oh, God.
Maybe a writer has a thing for Margot Elise Robbie, the actress. I mean, who doesn't? Yeah, although I looked up her age. I'm 4.5 years older than her. How is that possible? I've always looked at her and I'm like, she's in her 40s. She's like 35.
I remember when she came out in Wolf of Wall Street, that was kind of her big break and she was young. And I'm trying to think how old that movie is. So I guess that kind of makes sense to me.
You know what? I'm going to take that back. I think I have a judgment. I think all actresses are in their 40s and they just look
amazing
timeless.
For their age.
Maybe it's just this timeless feeling that I think most actresses are like early 40s or whatever. And they just look great and they just stay that way forever.
Okay. I watched a show called Sirens on Netflix.
Yep. I watched that.
And it has Julianne Moore in it.
Yeah.
I did not realize, because I think she looks gorgeous in that. She's in her 60s.
I think she actually does look more her age than other actresses, though.
She does. She hasn't done a lot of work, but like still, she looks amazing. I looked it up and I was just like shocked because she's been in so much. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, this woman has been acting forever and ever. How old is she? And something about that. And I'm sure it's lighting and everything too, but.
And she's just unusual.
She has a very distinct
She's
look.
not your typical Hollywood actress.
Yeah.
Anyway, a fun thought I had was that maybe this whole thing that I just read with all these details was just a break in the cosmos. News from another dimension somehow came through, and all of this really did happen, but we're stuck in the bad times. These advances haven't happened, and she's still Jane Doe in our timeline, but it's saved over there.
Possible.
I prefer that.
I mean, why not?
But the reality
fantastical.
is, in our timeline, while modern science has brought investigators closer to understanding her origins, it has done little to solve the larger mysteries of her life and death. In many ways, the advancements have deepened the mystery even more.
Damn it.
We now know about where she came from, but nothing definitive about who she was. Despite everything, suitcases, aliases, DNA, forensic testing, she remains nameless. And unanswered questions still outnumber answers. But hopefully advances in genealogical testing will come through for her sooner or later. I'm starting to just bank on that for everyone.
I know.
There have been 2 women brought forward that are really interesting candidates. Also women known to have multiple identities, just not living that normal everyday life. But I'm not going to go into them here. I'm not even going to give you their names. They are really interesting connections for both of them to consider. But because there's a lot more known about these 2 women than there is here, I would like to talk about them, maybe like a follow-up episode or like part of our Under the Microscope at some point.
Okay.
Because it's only a possibility that they could be her, and it's just worth the discussion. So best to save those details for another time.
Okay.
So, with no name, no known associates, and a half century of silence, it's no surprise that the Isdal Woman has become the focus of intense speculation online, particularly on Reddit.
Always.
Where users and subreddits have examined every detail of the case. And I've gone on some Reddit threads and they're like, oh, this podcast covered them. They suck.
They're so brutal. Please don't do that to us.
But I saw them do it recently on one that was like released a few months ago. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to end up on a subreddit.
I know. I think that so many different cases we've done, I end up on Reddits, and
I know.
It's intimidating, guys. Be nice.
Real internet sleuths look at every detail and remain open to those details.
Truth.
Many Reddit users, though, fall into one of 2 camps. The first argues that the case is far less mysterious than it seems. The second believes it's much darker and deeper than authorities have ever let on. Was she a spy, a smuggler, or a courier caught in the web of Cold War operations?
Or a vampire.
Was she a mentally ill woman trying to disappear?
Or a vampire.
Was she part of something political, something erased from the official record? Or was she simply someone without a home, a name, and anyone left to notice her absence?
Not sad to think about.
I know. A common refrain across all of these discussions is this: if she wasn't a spy, she sure acted like one. You know, like, if not a spy, why spy shaped?
Yeah, exactly.
The meticulous effort to erase her identity, the mobility, and the secrecy, it all suggests purpose.
Definitely.
Whether that purpose was personal, political, or professional remains open to interpretation. I'm inclined to believe that it had something to do with espionage. I think most things lead to that. The Isdal Woman is one of the few remaining mysteries from the Cold War era that hasn't been solved by declassified documents or DNA. And that vacuum of information keeps the theories alive.
Yeah.
As one Reddit user said, which I think just sums this up, we don't know who she was, but we know she didn't want us to know. And that's exactly why we can't stop looking. And I'll add that even though she made it so we didn't know who she was, even in death, she refuses to vanish completely.
True. So she wants to be found out, maybe. Her spirit does.
I hope we find out who she is at some point.
Me too. It took forever with Lady of the Dunes.
Right.
And there were all these theories. And I think there was even a theory that she was a spy as well.
Yeah. I hope she's a vampire.
It also reminds me the story of the room 1046, where we still don't know who that guy is either.
Right. And she was popping back and forth between all these rooms and doing weird things.
And they thought he was either organized crime or potentially espionage as well. So
I know.
How often does this happen? Because like you mentioned in the story, when you're ready to get out of that field, you have no identity. And I can imagine living that life for a long time. She was 45. It would be hard to like transition back into.
I mean, I would go find a place like on the beach somewhere and just claim a new identity, but
nobody would never know. Yeah.
I think what I believe happened here is that she really didn't have that opportunity.
No.
because it was so serious. Something that she was involved with. She would have never probably even been able to leave the region very far without someone knowing who she was. So I think she was maybe deeply involved in something that was
pretty nefarious.
Yeah.
And she was exposed somehow, and they just had to get rid of her.
I think being walked up a mountain to your death is...
Yeah, that farmer guy who said he saw her with two men behind her, that tells you everything. And the look in her eye that, yeah, she knew it was her time. She was scared, but defeated, like he said. She just knew.
Yeah.
She had been caught and there was nothing she could do because that was the life of...
But why burn her? Why not just throw her off the cliff?
Because if her body was found thrown off the cliff, they could still identify her. I think fire is thought to keep it a mystery.
But they were able to get a fingerprint.
And her teeth, you know, dental records.
I know. That's what you get rid of. That's why I think it still leaves that open possibility that she wasn't involved in something like that. And it's just...
I don't know. I just said that. And then I'm sitting here thinking, but if you go into spy work of any kind, I'm sure they get rid of your dental records. They strike them from the record. So that's why she would never be found that way. Like most other people. Because, you know, I think of Men in Black, or I think of any spy movie. It's like when you go into it, they erase your entire existence beforehand. So to me, that almost gives more credence to the fact that she was in something.
Or she was an orphan from the Nazi time and she didn't have anything to begin with.
But she had too much dental work to be done to be an orphan, unless it was done before she became an orphan.
Or it was done by a specialized medical person that, you know, like the mob, they have their own doctor who stitches up wounds.
Yep, there's a reason. That's why I'm saying the fact that there's not records out there makes me think, especially since she died in the 70s. I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery. And I love these kinds of episodes because we get to kind of go all over the place.
I know.
But it's also so frustrating because we don't know the answers. And we just get to add to the diatribe around it of what it could be. And
yeah. I would love it if she was just this high class, amazing businesswoman sex worker.
Yeah, that'd be badass.
That would be badass.
But I don't think
or
that's
a vampire, but I don't think that's it.
Vampire would be better. And she was like using all of these men as
she was eating them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's why you can't find them.
And that's why they had to burn her because she was
they found out who she was.
Yeah. Let's go with that story.
I like it. She did have dark everything otherwise. I know. And that just fits the story. But
and she came from Eastern Europe, which is Transylvania.
I don't know if vampires look for rainbows that long. You never know.
Yeah, true.
Anyway,
she's very specific.
I liked this story. It was fun to research.
Well, thank you for bringing this along. It's been a while since we've had a good mystery to discuss.
I know. Although I think I have another one
coming up.
Well, I didn't mean to. We don't know what stories are sometimes.
No. So I don't even know what I'm doing for our next episode. So there you go.
I feel like I'm too deep into it to change my mind, but you never know.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But thank you everyone for listening.
Yes. If you enjoyed this, we will be back next Tuesday with another new episode. And you can find us if you want to send any suggestions or comments or listener stories. Send those to lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com.
Show us some love anywhere that you find our podcast and tell your friend. Or if you have two, tell them too.
Yeah, spread the word. If you enjoy it, others will too.
Alrighty, guys. In the meantime,
stay lucid.
Goodbye.
Bye.